So have you ever thought of your supply chain as being rather like a river? If not, you might in just a couple of moments. Hi, this is Rob O'Byrne from Logistics Bureau, and this beautiful park here is very close to our office, and I often come out here and have a walk around at lunchtime. And today I was just walking over the bridge over the river here and thinking the river is actually a really good analogy for a supply chain and how you need to manage your supply chain. So behind me is the source of the Parramatta River. When you think about your own supply chain and picturing it as a river, the source is obviously your suppliers, your source of products. So start to think about your own supply chain in terms of, is it a single source? If that source dries up, do you have a problem? Do you have multiple sources? And do all of those sources flow into the main river like they do here? And one of the key things that you need to think about when you're sourcing products is obviously managing your suppliers, managing your sources, and understanding how the product flows from the source down your supply chain river. And there we talk about it as being supply lead time. So in a way, how fast is the river flowing from your source down towards your customers? Now here, as you can see, the river is very calm, it's barely moving. If you come down here after a couple of days of rain, this little sort of roadway that I'm standing on here is covered with water. There's about a metre of water flowing over this. You couldn't possibly walk past, this way. You have to actually go across the bridge behind me. So that raises another interesting analogy with supply chains, because what's the capacity of your supply chain? Again, people talk about supply chains often being like pipes. So if we take that flow of water analogy a little bit further, what's the flow capacity of your supply chain, and what do you do when you actually need more capacity? So typically you might see that by bringing in additional freight modes, bringing in additional warehousing during peak periods. And what's really important, let's just go around and look back up at the source again, of course, is having visibility back into the source of your supply chain. When you have a lot more product flowing down, can you see it? Can you identify when it's going to get here? Can you identify the lead times and when you're going to have to deal with it? So I don't want to make you too queasy turning around all the time, but let's now think about down towards, further down the flow of the river, down towards our customers. And again, you've got to think of your customers in terms of the endpoint of this river. This flows down into Sydney Harbour and then out into the sea. How does your supply chain flow? How does your product, the water in this river, actually get to your customers? Does it all flow down one single channel like this into the harbour, or does it branch off and go through different types of channels? Do you service your customers through different distribution channels? And how is the flow of your product affected down there? And again, what's the total time taken for the flow of your product all the way from sourcing all the way down to your customers through whatever channels those are? And I suppose I'll use this as a bit of an introduction to some further topics in later videos, but I'd really just want to get you thinking about some of the key elements of supply chain management, and that is the visibility of your product. Do you have full visibility all the way from source to customer? Do you know when those waves of product are arriving? What have you got to do to get better visibility? Can your suppliers provide that through their systems? Can your logistics companies provide that through their systems? Are you getting good forecasts from your customers down at this end of the river so that you're able to pass that information back up to your suppliers? And overall, think about the flexibility in your supply chain. What if you have a drought and your river's drying up? Does your supply chain operate in a different way? What if you get those rainstorms that I was talking about and you're getting floods coming down the river? How do you handle those? Can you bring in extra resources? What does it do to your costs? And one of the things that I'll talk about in a later video, which is very closely related to this, is understanding not just the time frames involved of the flow down your river, but the costs involved as well. So there we are, the Parramatta River and the analogy with a supply chain.